Alrighty, we are starting it. No, and my headphones aren't actually plugged in. I don't hear anything. Either way, though, we are live and we are here. Cardin's here as well.
What
Say hi,
up?
everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Wait a minute.
What?
Nothing, sorry. I thought I could hear you, but I couldn't. Wait, no, just give me a second. Just talk.
Okay. Welcome, everybody, back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardinellis, with Cody the Oracle. And,
All right, I hear something. Cool, we're good.
okay. Yeah. So, what a week. Where do you want to start, my man?
Big week. Well, I want to start talking about something that's honestly a little bit more interesting to me than a lot of the other nonsense going on in this country. And that is actually, so let me pull another article up first. Anyway, Andrew Yang moving forward with the Andrew Yang mayoral campaign. Because, I don't know, dude, a lot of this stuff, a lot of people hate this, but it's kind of my default go-to stance when crazy stuff's happening in the country like this. Try to not say a whole lot because I know a lot of BS, stupid misinfo's going out there. Whole lot of cope, whole lot of grifters jumping ahead of you to tell you what actually happened who have no idea what's going on. So instead, I've been just seeing what's going on else in the news and been having fun following my boy Andrew Yang running for mayor of New York City. Now, a couple interesting pieces came out over the last couple of days. There's a couple of things also going on around it, and I not only want to talk about this particular individual, just what Yang is doing, but a little bit about the run, but a couple individual things came up. One thing I gotta say, okay, so there's this thing, they used to do it more in like the 80s and 90s in pro wrestling, but they still kind of do it.
Oh,
and that
man,
is
80s and 90s.
Whoever's the top guy or girl, right? Whoever actually, female wrestling doesn't take it seriously back then for whatever reason. It is now, but it just wasn't then. Anyways, whoever the top person was, even if you weren't like directly, like everybody talked about them, you know, everyone was trying to call them out, take them down a peg, right? So Andrew Yang's been leading in all the polls. A couple interesting articles came out. This one was the most fascinating though. New York Times went out today saying, "Can Andrew Yang make it in New York City politics?" I feel like I could be wrong. I want to feel like this is an article that already existed. They just added a bunch to, or like maybe it's like, I don't know, like the Mandela effect. I swear I've read that headline. Can Andrew Yang make it in New York City politics? And it wasn't from today.
Well, we were saying that last time where I said you want to talk about national politics being dirty. I mean, New York City politics, I think, are just, you know how in Inception you go lower and deeper into dreams, and then finally there's that land where you're like a dream within a dream within a dream within a dream, and it's crazy, and it's just like psycho. That is New York City politics.
Well, there's a couple interesting things we're gonna go through here, but this is what went through here in this New York Times article. They touched on a couple things, but one thing stood out to a lot of people. I guess I'll kind of jump ahead of it. One of the interesting facts they broke in here is that Martin Luther King Jr., the third, I believe, right, officially, but the son of Martin Luther King Jr. will actually be Yang's, I believe, co-chair of his campaign. We'll go to this specific stuff. Yeah, they met in Georgia. And here's the thing that I actually will kind of talk about a little bit. Sorry, no, but I think it's interesting. I want to bring this up because they mentioned it in the article. They mentioned it in the lead.
He also did like the most
away.
Boring Andrew Yang interview we ever saw in our life.
Yeah. That aside, I think he might be a better influencer guide. I forgot the exact title for him. Pull it up, but he's going to be one of his top advisors, I believe. Anyway, though, they mentioned right away in this article that he spent more time barnstorming in Georgia than he did the 5 boroughs. He openly contemplated cabinet roles and lobbied Washington lawmakers around stimulus relief, and he often made television appearances from his weekend home in the Hudson Valley rather than from his apartment in Hell's Kitchen. That's more or less than they say Andrew Yang's the habit of practicing politics in unexpected ways. Longer article, that's the gist of what they kind of lob at him a little bit. The fact that he's not really a real New Yorker, and this is what I think is interesting.
Well, that's what
I said. They
mentioned
his Georgia trip right away, but this is what I think. I see a lot of people that are kind of like, well, why wouldn't people love that he did that? You know, and I think it's because if you're looking at it from the perspective of a Democrat voter, it's all one team, it's all one side, we're all one big party, one big happy family. Georgia, New York City, who cares? However, I have a feeling most New York City residents view themselves as New Yorkers, people from New York City. And they're like, well, he was in non-New York City helping non-New York City people get elected to help non-New York City people. So how does that help us?
See, the globalists are saying,
to rub off, I think.
I got to do this with an Alex Jones accent. Because, the globalists, I can't even do it, dude.
Yeah, but that wasn't one, unfortunately.
That was horrible, dude. The globalists are saying that, why don't we just all vote for this because it's one big party and one big tent, But I'm not even going to try. I do a horrible Alex Jones impression. But, yeah, I mean, I thought earlier on, this was one of his biggest weaknesses. And I've said this before. Because I sensed that he sensed it because you'll recall that I said I noticed that in the weeks leading up to him declaring his mayoral candidacy for mayor, that all of a sudden he was posting all these pictures of, I remember the day that me and Evelyn got married downtown at the, at City Hall. And, he started like acting all New Yorky,
well, he
NYC
actually just
boy.
posted again today here. Sorry, you keep talking for 1 second. He just posted again today. This.
Yeah, exactly.
Evelyn and I are celebrating our 10th anniversary. But it's good. He needs to ingratiate himself. But he's recognizing that obviously one of the main lines of attack people are going to lob against him for somebody who has been not necessarily globe-trotting, but continental trotting, I guess, over the past few months. I mean, he hasn't been just, hunker down at home. But there's one thing that they also brought up, a specific quote that came up in that article that, holy man, it was one of those things where, again, I always say this, and I firmly believe it. The New York Times is just anti-human. Nothing political about it. They just don't like human beings. It was like they could tell that there was this one...
transhumanists.
There was this one quote he had in the article. I'm trying to pull the quote up himself. But he basically says that he was challenged on spending more time at his home upstate than his apartment in Manhattan, right? And here's the quote right here. He says, we live in a 2-bedroom apartment in Manhattan. And so, can you imagine trying to have 2 kids on virtual school in a 2-bedroom apartment and then trying to do work yourself? I want to pull up. Now, New York Times kind of smelling the blood in the water. They rushed out to put an edit up on their Twitter account. Sorry, I'm trying to do multiple things at once here and kind of failing, but I'll pull it up for you guys. So they can tell they're like, ooh, good, people are mad about this one. We got to get a graphic up and really make a viral tweet people can spread to dig it in. This is from earlier in the day now, and New York Times tweets all day, but I want to pull it up and show you guys. It is really funny to look at. However, that is definitely one of the things that's going to be brought up, and I think it's interesting. It's the fact that Andrew Yang has spent time campaigning for non-New Yorkers outside of New York for months now. I mean, here we go. I love this. It's like I think it's one of the only real ones they post in this interview. And it's like, they really want to make sure that if you want to dunk on Yang, they have a nice, easy, graphic made up for you. So you can really just dunk on him nice and
Somebody
easily.
Fears him and hates him already, and
however,
they're prepping the memes.
A little bit. However, there is a little bit of legitimacy I can see to the complaints here. And it's the fact that while from Andrew's perspective, I'm definitely sure 100%, like you said, look, he's trying to do TV hits, from his home to CNN. He has kids at school in a tiny apartment. That's really probably not the best place to do it in Manhattan. It's probably better to do it somewhere else, right? Yeah. However, he's going to need to go to people who just didn't have that option and had to tough it out in the city this whole time. Yeah. Sure, a lot of people are like, hey, man, I have to do Zoom meetings, but I also have 3 kids.
And that's the point,
is that
it's like...
But they didn't get to just leave.
They didn't get to just leave,
and
exactly.
Fair or not, people will be bitter and petty and be like, oh, who's this Yang guy? He can just abandon the city? We toughed it out. People kind of, they kind of build a little bit of sense of pride. I'm just putting a little bit... And that's what I'm reading in the comments. Like, we toughed it out. You just left and are coming back. And it's like... I see their point a bit goofy, but I see their point a bit, right? It's not like left the field.
It's true, and also he's got to be staring down the barrel of another drastic truth here right now, and that is, Cody. Whenever New Yorkers are represented in cinema and radio and television, what's the stereotype? Would you say
mean,
unhappy? Words that come to mind, bruiser, tough, bare knuckle. I don't think nice Asian Boy Scout.
How about just like they've never came across to me as a group of people that likes to give people the benefit of the doubt. And if it feels like they just took off during the worst of it, because dude, I mean, I don't live in New York City,
and it's not even benefit of the doubt. It's like, are you right? one of us?
Exactly. Think about it, all year.
Are you really one of us? Mm-hmm. And because all of us have been saying, I live in a 2-bedroom apartment in Manhattan. And yeah, it's crazy. I have to send my kids to school, homeschool, cook for the family, and try and have a Zoom meeting with a little dog that hasn't been able to go on a real walk for 6 months. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I have to do all that.
But again,
and it's a half, because this is a cement jungle that has no give, no forgiveness, and you have to make it work in the space that you've been given. So, things like that make him seem more of an outsider than some picture, of him in his house in the Hudson Valley.
Yeah, I mean, literally leaving, right?
Yeah.
But again, I don't think that's the end of the campaign kind of thing. It's the kind of stuff, though, that it definitely seems like that's the line of attack. And by the way, there's something else I want to bring up. Andrew Yang has not officially, I don't believe, actually, officially launched his campaign. I mean, he hasn't yet. there is the video floating around of him filming the commercial where he's literally said on camera, "My name is Andrew Yang and I'm running for mayor of New York City." He hasn't made that public announcement yet. However, some people have been putting this around. I do believe this bit is confirmed. Andrew Yang will be making another View appearance. View seems to love Andrew Yang the 19th of this month, which would be the most Andrew Yang move ever, to announce that he's running for mayor the day before the inauguration, when a bunch of shenanigans are going to happen. There's something about the Andrew Yang camp. They're so good at announcing stuff. There was something else. It was like Humanity Forward made some announcement. It wasn't like groundbreaking, but they made some small announcement of something they were doing. And it was like on the same day that they were going to like confirm the votes or something like that. Like not the 6th, wasn't they going to certify or something like that? I forgot exactly what it was, but that wouldn't surprise me. But it does look like now we are moving towards again. I mean, we've known for like a week or 2 or 3 weeks. Andrew Yang is not for sure, but I mean, he's running for mayor. He just hasn't actually said, "Hello, America, here I am and I'm running," or "Hello, New York," I guess. However, it didn't stop the smear pieces, so that was the first one we wanted to go over.
By the way, are we waiting for his first accidental America slip, where instead of saying, New York, I really think, where he actually says America?
Well, how about maybe?
It's like when Nancy Pelosi kept on slipping, saying, "There's just not a thing here that I can work with Bush about." Oh, wait, no, I mean Trump about. She was just so programmed into hating Bush that she actually said it. So I wonder how much of him is just so programmed to just talking UBI in the American context that he forgets that he's a New York City mayor for a moment and slips.
I'm sure it'll happen. I've seen a lot of but hold on. So that first piece, we didn't go through every single line of it. You can read it if you want. It was just definitely a lot of. There was one bit where they asked some lady. She works at some business bureau in New York City, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't know this Andrew Yang guy. I never see him anywhere. Is he even a real New Yorker? Now, New York Post, though, ramping up. It was one thing to say Andrew Yang eats bad pizza. New York Post a couple days ago came out with another piece on Andrew Yang. And by the way, this is not a brand new attack on Andrew Yang. This has came up before in the past. However, Andrew Yang's anti-circumcision stance cuts deep with Jewish leaders. You know what, though? God, I should notice this. My bad, guys.
By the way,
hold on. Same author, John Levine. Same author who wrote the pizza article. Yang eats bad pizza. I should have noticed that. So they're just doing this stuff for clicks. However, again, my larger point I wanted to show to this, the fact that they're running articles mostly just...
Cody, you can't underestimate the power of this. What is the very first thing that Ben Shapiro asked him when he came on his Sunday special? Like, one of the very first questions that our boy Ben Shapiro said was like, "Yeah, well, I know you've done some things against circumcision, but you're not against those that religiously think it." And he was like, no, it's fine. Like, do it if you want to. But like, that's like a legitimate question.
Here we go. Let's go through the article, right? So it mentions here, again, this is how serious this complaint is. The article starts off with, "He's got foreskin in the game." I don't... It's what I mean, dude. Here's the thing. If these people are serious when they write articles like this...
That is funny.
Funny, but it also tells me you don't actually care about this. You're just telling jokes. But this has been something, though. That's why I wanted to bring this particular article up about it. Has been kind of following him. Here, I'll go through the article. They explain it better than I could, probably. Andrew Yang, the failed presidential candidate. There we go. Just some more color into the water really quickly. Signaled his intention to run for mayor of New York City. Is a longtime opponent of circumcision, and some political observers wonder if that position could cut into his popularity. The entrepreneur, 45. Hey, they didn't call him a Silicon Valley billionaire. He said entrepreneur. I guess they called him a failed presidential candidate, but he would face a crowded field in the June Democratic primary, has repeatedly spoken of his disdain for the traditional snip. God, I hate the way this article is worded. But why I wanted to bring it up is, against the practice, he told a Twitter user in March 2019 when asked about his stance. This came up again in an interview he did with the Daily Beast, where Yang elaborated, saying he originally planned to have his 2 boys circumcised, but his wife talked him out of it.
Wow.
He then went on to voice supports for the Intactivists, a group of anti-circumcision activists, I guess. I think there was another interview he went on to talk about. Anyway, this has been something that like 3 or 4 times. I think it's like the 3rd or 4th article for sure I have had to read, but Andrew Yang's circumcision opinion, like you brought up, he goes in Ben Shapiro's podcast right away. Yeah. This is something that that has actually been, for whatever reason, following him from when he was running for president to now. So like sorry, I missed the pro Briss Andrew Yang tweet. Here we go. December 30th, 2020. Again, we saw some more. Sorry, I need to move this a little bit so you guys can see a little better. Like, this is something that keeps coming back up.
Yeah,
this was the Daily Beast
it's like
again. This is an old article.
It's like he's not against circumcision. Okay, as in like you can't do it. He's saying, I don't think as a cultural phenomenon for those that don't have the religious, the religious motivation behind it should do it. Like if I had another kid, I wouldn't circumcise him myself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, but I just beyond the.
Well, I didn't circumcise him myself in the first place. So we actually have to worry. We got to worry how we word that. You know what I'm saying?
Beyond that, though, it's just beyond what Yang's stance is or isn't, or if he should or shouldn't be saying stuff. It just does feel like this is something that comes up. Yang felt the need to respond to this a couple of days, December 31st, or like 2 weeks ago now, a little less, saying, "Thanks, Ben. I have attended multiple friends' brisses and felt privileged to do so. I believe in religious freedom. This is every parent's personal decision and not a role of government. Happy New Year." I mean, again, I don't think Andrew Yang is like this big anti-circumcision
activist
champion. But it is interesting to note that it came up from this, John Levine guy over at New York Post who loves to write goofy articles about Andrew Yang. But before that, this keeps coming up. Like, this keeps becoming a thing people talk about and bring up. So those are the couple things I wanted to keep in mind. So of like the kind of things that are going on mostly around the fact that Andrew Yang's upcoming mayoral campaign, I personally am kind of waiting for the campaign to start because I think it'll be interesting. Hey, one more thing.
Yeah.
I believe
Are you going to show
legit.
that?
I believe this is legit from Azalea Banks. I'm not a huge understander of this. I think she's like a model and a singer.
Here, let's look it up.
Right. Dude, I feel bad. Sometimes I feel like I'm 85 years old when it comes to like any like pop culture thing. It's like, I think the kids like him.
Yeah, she's been getting in trouble.
I think this is official where she called Andrew Yang a CCP asset. I don't know if this is actually, it says at the top, you can see it's her. And the reason why I brought it up is because this individual right here, God dang, I need to get this right. Here we go. Paperboy Prince, who actually tweeted it. He also announced he is running for mayor of New York City. I think he's also like a rapper, artist, does some stuff like that. And he tweeted that. However, he was pro Yang and he was part of the Yang gang. He actually made a music video for Andrew Yang, I believe. Which, by the way, we have to talk about one thing after this I have to bring up. I don't care if we get banned. I don't want to get banned for it, but I want to bring it up because it cracks me up. But I just thought this was interesting. But again, this might not be something people might see us and get upset by this. It is obviously, if she means it, pretty ridiculous to assert something like that. It's pretty outlandish. But here's the thing. Like I said at the beginning, right? There's this climate where
I thought I had heard every conspiracy theory out there.
Like, you want to take shots. If you want to take shots at people that are running for mayor because you want someone else to win, you're going to take shots at whoever's at top, right? Like, Andrew Yang is obviously perceived as the top threat for mayor of New York right now.
Yeah.
He's apparently an anti-circumcision activist, a CCP, all this crazy stuff.
A tech billionaire.
He hasn't even officially announced it. He's not even a real New Yorker. He hasn't even officially announced he's running it. All this stuff's coming out. I think it bodes well for the fact that he is the guy everyone's paying attention to. And then I guess they just kind of,
he might have a little bit of the Trump effect here. And we have a super chat that kind of agrees with me here. I just remember I forgot to address the super chats. First super chat is from Grim Lestand. Thank you very much for the super chat. It says, Yang is scaring the NYC elites. Gotta love it. That goes along with what you say, saying, hey, it's good that you see these tweets because it means that people fear him.
Oh, yeah.
And second off, or at least the elites do, and the New York Times is already teeing up their memes. But by the way, I'm glad to see the left memeing now. You know what I'm saying? The Yang gang was the first aspect of the left that I saw able to meme well in the past decade. You know what I'm saying? So it's just good to see the New York Times attempting a meme game, Yeah. And then finally Sly Cactus says, I approve of these puns. And I think he was talking about seeing if he got foreskin in the game. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But I'm sorry, I want
to point this way. The last thing about this, though, is all of this. Scott Stringer has been getting some for the I don't know if it's the second time. Okay, Scott Stringer. I'm not going to act like I know all about New York City politics, but I think you were in New York City at that time. 2011, were you there?
in
2011. Anyway,
I think 11 was when I came back. It was 2010 or 9.
Well, just
Ish.
Scott Stringer ran for mayor in 2011, and one of his big celebrity endorsements then was Scarlett Johansson. She just did another event endorsing the Scott Stringer guy about a decade later, running for mayor. So
really,
I think that 4-cent drop you see in the predicted market is an Avenger coming out in support of Scott Stringer. Until Yang gets an Avenger on his side, it's going to be a little bit down. But either way, in jest, it's betting markets, polls, energy, everything is pointing to Yang is the guy. He is the front runner. He's the focal point. He is center of attention. Other people are going to make their salt in this race by attacking Yang to make their name. So when he walks in officially, but again, I always say it's kind of like that kind of bit of a curse as well, where it's like if you're the favorite, if you're the center of attention, the person everyone's talking about before you walk into this and make it official, you better win, man. You better not lose when it's like everyone's looking up at you. All the smears are against you. All the people are coming out for you. Money's on, money is bet on all this. A lot of pressure, a lot more pressure than being this nobody no one's ever heard of, scrappy underdog. A lot more pressure when day one, the minute that video, the second that tweet goes up on the Andrew Yang Twitter account where he says, I am officially a candidate for the mayor of New York City, he is the favorite to win of everyone running. And so this, like I said, the scary thing.
How much do you think the name recognition will help?
I mean, just all the polls already say he's number one. Betting markets say he's number one.
Really?
Yeah. Again, here's the predicted, which predicted's probably the most. It's not the only, but it's one of the most popular, well used, and you can kind of follow some betting trends. It's not the word of God, but I'm just saying people that are putting money on the mayor and the New York mayoral race, they're putting it on Yang. I believe every poll that's not every, but several polls that have come out of as well have had Andrew Yang listed as the number one choice.
Wow, that's got to be a boost.
I'll see if I can pull up the most recent poll for you guys. No, it's what I mean. But here's the thing, right? When you enter the race day one, right?
Yeah.
As the favorite, all you could do is hold or go down.
Yeah.
So it's scary and a tough spot to be in.
Yeah.
It's a lot of pressure. You had to kill it. Now, some people, though, I think Yang can do it. Sometimes people just walk in
and all
and
these
they kill
people
it,
that are
and it
writing
doesn't
these New York Times articles against Andrew Yang saw that, and their boy that they want to win isn't there. So they're trying to do hit pieces now. Man, that's tough.
He's the number one guy. But hold on, this is something. Speaking of music videos for Andrew Yang, we were talking about Andrew Yang music videos, right? I can't believe I had forgotten about this. I want to pull it still. I don't know if any of you guys. Some of you guys might recognize this guy's face. Let me get a good still pulled up for you guys. Some of you people might recognize this guy's face. It became very famous recently.
Yeah, this was a while ago, though. This was before the lockdown.
I can't even believe this happened and it was real, but it did. Totally forgot about this. Some of you might recognize this guy as the right-wing seditionist that was arrested after being photographed in Nancy Pelosi's office. This individual right here.
Is this Baked Alaska?
I totally forgot.
Oh my
god! Totally forgot he had done this. Dude.
Yeah, you're right.
So weird the world and the universe is, right?
Yeah.
This individual, before he stormed the Capitol building and got himself sent to federal prison. Not yet. I'm not in federal prison yet, but I'm assuming he will.
I don't know enough about this Baked Alaska cat. I only know his face from a couple of news articles.
I mean, he's kind of just an idiot moron. He's the kind of person who finds himself storming the Capitol going to federal prison. He's that kind of person. However, he's here we go. He's the white nationalist, Baked Alaska life, filmed himself from inside the U.S. Capitol as he joined rioters. I want to find the actual picture. It's a pretty famous picture. It's been going around. A lot of people have been sharing it. It just cracks me up. I totally forgot that guy made a pro Andrew Yang music video the beginning of last year, I think it was, or middle. I think it was summer of 2019 or something like that. Just one of those just kind of small world weird things. I had totally forgotten about that. That did exist. That happened.
Hey, if we ever get arrested, Cody, for do something crazy, are people gonna be saying, dude, small world, these guys had, problem solver politics as their channel,
Probably not. No.
Okay, Hank Anderson's makes really good comment here. Thank you very much for the super chat, Hank. Says, all this stuff from the New York Times is ironic because they recommended he run for mayor. Oh, so we got
No,
Hank Anderson.
they did early in the year. That's what I mean. I think that was some New York Times opinion. It was an opinion piece, but still, it's like, I think again, it's coming. This John Levine guy in New York Post writing articles. People recognize that Yang is the energy. He's the driving force. You'll see though, dude. A lot of campaigns. I remember in 2015, Republican was going to walk away with the primary.
Herman Cain?
Jeb, remember? No,
Jeb. Yeah. Sorry, no. Oh, I was thinking totally the wrong election cycle.
There's always those few weeks where somebody's obviously the favorite and they just vanish.
And don't forget, wasn't there a period of time where
Bloomberg
had an insane betting odd when he announced how much money he was going to spend?
There was a time where Bloomberg was really weirdly moving up and betting. There was a lot of smart money, so it seemed like. A lot of people who knew better were like, Bloomberg's spending a lot of money. He's making a lot of waves, but unfortunately, it all mounted to nothing. Just how bizarre. How bizarre is that, dude? Just how weird is the world? Also, I'm kind of glad. I kind of feel bad for bringing it up a little bit. I hope Andrew Yang doesn't have some people trying to slander Andrew Yang. Well, how come someone who made a music video supporting you, one of your supporters, I would not say Baked Alaska's an Andrew Yang supporter, but dude, he did do a bit, but honestly, I think it's because he's more of a grifter and he saw that the Yang gang was rising to prominence, so he wanted to grift off the Yang gang. But just one of those things that cracked me up. Somebody posted the other day, I'm like, oh yeah, a guy who made a pro Andrew Yang music video literally live streamed himself in Nancy Pelosi's office a few days ago. Weird world. I would definitely say not representative of Andrew Yang supporters for the most part, but that is a real thing that did actually happen. You know what I mean? So
yeah. So also Kenneth Booker, if he had a genie and he had one wish, I think this is what he wished. He said, hopefully Yang doesn't pull a Howard Dean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? That was Howard Dean, right?
I can't think of a worse demise for tarnishing your legacy, maybe other than being known as the guy that incited a riot at the Capitol, than the demise of Richard Nixon and Howard Dean, because one is just ingracious and ignominious, and then the other one's just really embarrassing. If the end of your political career that you allowed it to be, because you didn't understand cancel culture as well back then, but Rainbow Bubbles did just bring up another thing. Please clap. Oh, do you remember that one? That one was really bad too.
That was Jeb. Dude, that wasn't the whole Jeb thing fell off the rails.
No, but that was funny though. To me, that was funny. That was boomer humor funny.
You know what I think is interesting though? And I thought it was this article. One of these articles I read. Here's the funny thing. I had read something recently, and I wanted to put the two things together. And we've all seen this before, but I think I read a recent thing like this where people said that Andrew Yang, I forgot the Politico article I wanted to show you guys as well, but something about how Andrew Yang had alt-right supporters and like that, kind of how I joked with Baked Alaska, right?
Yeah.
But the next time anybody says anything about Andrew Yang and, him being a white, whatever they want to call him, right? This just cracks me up. Apparently, Andrew Yang and Martin Luther King III have become great friends over the past few months. He's literally the co-chair of his campaign. But it wasn't literally in this article. I was trying to find the article. That weird early slander attack against Andrew Yang, the fact that he's a alt-right whatever, it just every now and then people lazy people when they're writing articles, they'll include that early on. You gotta have alt-right sympathizers. I guarantee you it hasn't happened yet. Somebody's gonna dig that Baked Alaska video up and say, oh, is this you, Yang? Or is this you, Yang Gang? Some snarky tweet showing Baked Alaska and on CNN being called a terrorist and showing him rapping for Yang, even though Yang can't control that. It's just the actual people who meet Andrew Yang all seem to have one opinion of him. But I'm just saying, those lazy media attacks, man, they don't go away.
Yeah, but
they stay forever.
I don't think, yes, they stay forever, but I got to tell you, I don't think that is as powerful as the headline of this article. Can you go up on the headline of the article so the audience can see?
This one?
Oh no, you had another one. Oh, that one right there. Andrew Yang left New York as COVID surged.
That was the attack against him.
Now he wants to be mayor.
Yes.
I mean, let's be honest. It was the media able to create a narrative that Trump mishandled COVID that really actually started his takedown.
Well, you saw what Cuomo said today, right?
Shall we say? Yeah.
You saw what Cuomo said.
Yeah,
about
he basically turned Republican today.
Yeah.
You know?
Honestly, that is a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you had replaced Cuomo with
Yeah.
I almost said Rick Santorum. I don't think I actually meant Rick Santorum.
Yeah.
But you know, like some Republican governor, it would have looked like the exact same.
Hey, why don't you pull
rhetoric.
up the tweet that people are actually talking about?
Yeah, I will. But it's really interesting that make sure I'm pulling the right thing up. But yeah, that like you see now Cuomo coming out and saying, you know, enough's enough. We have to open.
Yeah.
We have to do whatever it takes to get things open. We can't wait for the vaccine day. Here, I'll read it right here for you guys. I'm sorry, I have to use a. New York Times doesn't like me reading their news, so I have to use like proxies and in private mode and 7 browsers. But anyway, so this is what would be Andrew Yang's, not necessarily his boss, but you know, the mayor of New York City doesn't work for the governor of New York, but the mayor of New York City also is going to have to go to the governor's office and ask for things, right?
Yeah.
Like the governor can give Yang a whole lot more than Yang can give the governor, I guess, with the mayor to governor. He said, we simply cannot stay closed until the vaccine hits critical mass. The cost is too high. We will have nothing left to open. We must reopen the economy, but we must do it smartly and safely. It is like too good to point as well. Yeah, like whoever takes over as mayor in November, it's going to be in the middle of this smart but safe reopen and rebuild, right?
Yeah. Now, really fast, I'm just going to address 2 super chats. Thank you very much, Kenneth Booker. He brings up the point that Gary Hart also blew it after being a front runner.
They made a movie about that, right?
Yeah, and also, believe it or not, there was a point in, I can't remember which campaign it was, but Herman Cain led for like 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Herman Cain led big time until, you know, he ended up being like a 3% candidate, 4% candidate.
You know what it reminds me a bit, too? It's like,
Uh-huh.
and I'm not a big sports fan, but in sports, they have like the preseason power rankings where they kind of just guess like 1 to 30 or 1 to 32 where each team. And sometimes, by like week 4, it's like those weren't right at all.
Really
like
bad.
that team's terrible. You guys said they were going to be good. I think some of it's like that too.
No,
like,
but
before the
that leads
election,
into
you
this
kind of
other
have a
super
guess,
chat.
and then the election happens, and you're like, "Ooh, never mind. Let's move on."
Yeah, so Sly Cactus, first off, Mental Messiah, that was a really great comment. We got a member of the channel here says, shame on Politico for presenting Yang as a COVID coward. That's an interesting term, COVID coward. Good point, Mental Messiah.
No,
Anyway, Sly Cactus says, I learned one thing from the Capitol Hill storming, proof that walls don't work, LOL. Now a moat, on the other hand. See, you've been talking about that moat, and Andrew Yang said we got to reinforce the Rio Grande.
One of Andrew Yang's moats would have kept those people out of the Capitol, man. A lot harder to get across a moat than it is to get up a wall, man. A lot more time to stop people from crossing a moat than getting up a wall. Easier to watch people crossing a moat and getting up a wall.
Dude, my heart breaks for both those people. I just saw the video. I saw the video of the guy that lobbed the extinguisher that hit the Capitol Hill police, and I was furious. I want to see that guy sent to prison for 20 years.
How about
30 years?
All I'm gonna say is this: this week, I make
Wait,
this,
is that the
I make this
Capitol
point all the
Hill
time.
officer that died, or was he just the one that was injured? I don't
honestly,
remember.
dude, I have no idea. There's so much weird reporting. That's why I honestly kind of held my tongue on this stuff because I don't even know what to believe. But I'll say one thing about. Oh dang it! I lost it. I had an interesting. One thing. Whether it's good or not, there's no reason to expect any kind of consistency when it comes to politics from people. So don't see everyone online. Don't expect consistency. Tell you what, you don't even really have to be consistent. No one's going to hold you to being consistent. Opinions really can just kind of spin on a dime, even from event to event. I don't know if it's ACAB, Blue Lives Matter, Back to Blue, those brave soldiers, those awful race soldiers. I don't even know, like frame by frame anymore, what people's opinions will be on it. So it's just, they're really, like, there's no, I don't know, man. There's no standard of consistency in like political thoughts. So yeah, you're not going to see it from people. So when you don't see it, try not to get too upset because you're not going to see it. It's just not, it doesn't exist anymore.
Well,
there
you're
is
right.
no consistency.
Well, your boy Ben Shapiro says, don't expect a standard or a double standard because there is no standard. You know what I'm saying? But we need to go back to this because this is popping, and I agree with it, Cody. That Racer X point out that Trump wanted a moat and had suggested alligators. I forgot about the alligator comment. That was like 3 years ago. And then also check this out. I lost him in the chat here, but they brought up a big point that a moat full of alligators would not be as effective as hippos. Because hippos actually cause more deaths in the Nile than alligators do.
Yeah, hippos would be better.
So would that not be totally BA to have a capital moat filled with frickin' hippos? Like, that would be a legit spectacle.
You know what I would say? I would say then we if that was what would happen, then we really should call this country a monarchy and say that's the castle the king lives in.
That's the castle the king lives in.
Because yes, the irony is the people's house shouldn't have walls or any of that stuff. Right?
So the
Capitol building shouldn't have any of that stuff.
So Mental Messiah, man, he's hitting some homers today. Brings up another point. Says, remember when the media said Yang should run for a lower elected office? Now that he does it, they got a rip on him. Thank you, mainstream media. Hey, Mental Messiah agrees with Cody that you can't expect any consistency from these people. They should be lauding him, but they're not.
Check this out real quickly. I love this. From that New York Times article today. He is also to face scrutiny and pressure of a wholly different magnitude than he ever confronted as a genial presidential candidate dropped out last February, as voters, rivals, and the news media dissect his experience, views, and basic knowledge of the city. Quote, if someone's looking for a candidate who has spent the last couple decades steeped in city government I will likely not be their candidate, Mr. Yang said in a Friday morning interview with his weekend home in New Paltz, New York, about 80 miles outside of New Hampshire. Throughout the article, they bring up more and more the fact that here we go. Although he's never run for office in New York, and Mr. Yang's presidential bid showcased his fundraising ability, but they bring up time and time again the fact that he actually hasn't ran for any office. Here's the quote I loved from Catherine S. Wild. Is he a New Yorker? I don't even know. You know, I'll say one thing. If New York Times really wanted to kind of twist the dagger on this story, that would have been the headline.
Yeah.
Is he a New Yorker, in quotes.
Yeah.
But that does seem to be
By the way, they're not going to be asking,
of all this.
Is he? There's an old saying in New York that you're not a New Yorker until you've lived here a decade. And that is a cultural thing. Like, if you move in next door and your New Yorker neighbor asks you, oh, so where you're from? Or so where'd you move from? Oh, I've been here like 8 years, me and my wife. Oh, cool. So if you're from out of town, it's like you literally there is a high standard before they consider you a New Yorker. All right. I think New Yorkers are almost as tough in their stance as who is a New Yorker and who isn't, as white supremacists arguing about whether Irish people count or not. You know what I'm saying about, people who try and figure out what Tiger Woods is or they're more vicious than Dave Chappelle can make a racial draft, a Chappelle show episode out of. There's a standard for, are you one of us there in that city that is so much higher than any other city I've been in. You can move to Los Angeles. Yeah, you've been here 5 years. People are like, okay, cool, you're in the club.
Dude,
you know what I'm
you've
saying?
Been in Los Angeles 5 years, you've been here a while.
Yeah, exactly. In New York, no, you're still a baby. You're still a baby. You haven't been beat up yet. Of course, that's more New York in the 70s, but
yeah. It is interesting. I think that does seem to be, and honestly, it's probably because it's going to stick the line of attack you'll see against Andrew Yang a lot in this election. For mayor, he's just the AD. He's not one of us. He's not actually from here. He doesn't stick with us. He didn't tough it out. He left. All this stuff.
Yeah. So Sly Cactus says we need a promotion. Oh, and he says moat, dude. Sly, digging. I'm digging. And Ann Tower says, sounds like the Swiss Family Robinson movie. And I believe she was referencing our hippos in the moat, that we came up with. There could be, it's like, how in England they have the changing of the guard and the guard has to stay there no matter what you do. They can't make a face or anything like that. And it just becomes a spectacle. You wanted to see the changing of the guard. It would become a spectacle that the feeding of the hippos around the state capitol at high noon and at midnight would become the thing. And who knows, maybe you could pay your $25 for the rack of ribs and you could throw it into the hippos or whatever it is that they eat, right? And Adam Duffy says, sorry I'm late. What's up, y'all? What's up, my man?
Yeah, welcome. And we're just looking at a lot of the same old tire BS attacks on Andrew Yang. I forgot about there was one more too. Andrew Yang hasn't voted in New York City. I'm sure it's a big deal. Honestly, I have to admit, I'm kind of curious.
That worked.
Who is the people who vote in the local New York City elections? Who actually is that?
Well, people that live there.
Dude, I know people who live in Los Angeles don't vote in local Los Angeles elections. You know what I mean? It's only some residents that vote.
Yeah, but then they're non-voters.
I understand that, but what's
unless they're
residence vote?
registered out of state and they're saying like for example, if I lived in Virginia, I could register as an absentee ballot voter, and then it would get sent to Virginia, and then your parents could mail it to you there, and then you could. I mean, you technically could do that, but by and large, people vote where they live.
Know what I mean, dude? The point is, not everyone who lives in New York City actually votes. Period.
Well, yeah, of course.
So I'm wondering what type of New York City
Not
people
this year.
actually vote.
This year, they sent out a ballot to everybody and harvested the crap out of that cheese, man. So, yeah, that one goes away. But let me see. I had a thought, and I was just about to say it, and I can't remember what it was. Anyway, that's fine. I think that's going to be the biggest thing. Oh, I remember what it was. The biggest thing Andrew Yang's going to have to overcome with all New Yorkers is whether or not he can overcome the "you're not one of us." And then in a debate, I could see this woman coming out saying, "Look, you're not a real New Yorker. You just barely moved here, but you haven't participated in our system. You didn't bring us through COVID. You didn't bring us through the riots. You are not a member of our city." And he'll be like, "Yeah, well, I got married here." All she has to do is say, "Name one organization you've served on in New York."
Well, Humanity Forward has done a
will
lot
be
of
the
work.
soundbite.
Humanity Forward has literally pumped in the last calendar year millions, or maybe $1 million plus, to be more literal, but over $1 million into
Then I would
New York
memorize
City.
the names of the people that it helped.
It's not that Andrew Yang's done nothing. It's just that, he has kind of been all across the country the last year and a half or so, and that is going to keep coming up. But no, I mean, we'll get into that probably more on another stream, all of the stuff he has been doing. But I think it's interesting right now, kind of taking stock of where is this stuff coming from? What are people actually saying about Andrew Yang? What's actually going on with this? And again, a lot of people are really, the attention's on him. The talk's about him. He's the focal point. It looks good for him. But yeah, I mean, for someone who has legitimately been all across the country, I could see people saying, "Hey, we haven't seen you enough. We feel like you're not actually one of us enough." It's not a crazy thing to say, really,
Yeah, and you're getting some recruitment here. Max Anishi says, "Cody, relocate to New York."
Oh,
Cody,
no,
would you
thank
consider that?
No,
No, why not?
I'm not a fan.
It's not what it used to be, but I loved New York. I would go back to New York in a heartbeat if it could still be even 80% as cool as it was when I was there. New York's great, my man. I think you would thrive in a place like New York.
I am going to be more than happy, I'm pretty sure, in southern Nevada in a few weeks. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. I totally dug New York, man. How many New Yorkers actually in the city of New York? Well, the New York Yang Gang was relatively active, right?
Yeah, the New York City's huge. A bunch of people are in New York City. I'm sure a lot of them are pro-Yang.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I'd be curious to see what kind of built-in volunteer base.
I'm not a New York City type person. I definitely am. I am going to enjoy living out further in the desert. And you know what? Once I get comfortable there, I'm probably going to go even further out into the desert next time. I like the desert. I'm a lizard in that sense, I guess. I like the desert.
Yeah.
Or a snake, I guess. I don't know. Take your pick. But
you're cold-blooded?
Yeah, I don't know. I've always liked being out there. So.
Okay, that's legitimate. I could see that.
And Nevada,
awesome.
Las Vegas Yang Gang's a real thing too. There's a lot of Las Vegas
Yang Gang was super active. Atlanta Yang Gang was super active.
Yeah.
The New York Yang Gang was doing a lot of damage. There was those guys up in Oregon. The guys up in Oregon were pretty active.
Oh yeah.
They check in with us a lot.
There's Yang Gang in like Hong Kong and stuff. People DM me.
Yeah, that was crazy. And we got the hats from the Aussies for Yang. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And apparently in chat, you're gaining a new nickname as the Lizard Overlord. I think you should go with that one.
Yeah, oof.
I think you should run with that one.
And I can barely contain the first one.
This is really funny.
Hey, I'm a lizard person. I forgot.
Yeah. Adam Duffy says cold-blooded Cody the Oracle.
I'm actually a shape-shifting lizard person. So.
Dude.
Yang's one of us. We're all in on it. We're trying to take over the world.
If I met you and you were just a shape-shifting lizard person, and I'm like, I freaking did.
Did you see the video, Cardin, of Alex Jones calling out the Q people? Saying they're all crap and they're all idiots and they're all liars and nothing they say ever comes true and he hates them?
I never saw the video, but I did hear it happen.
Yeah, dude.
Really?
I will say, as someone who kind of keeps an eye on Alex Jones, he was legitimately saying like 3 years ago, like, this Q stuff's all awful, it's all crap, and none of it's true, and they're all liars.
Is that because they were?
He has maintained that for years, I will say.
So, is that because they were competing with him for conspiracy
Who
theory
knows?
bandwidth?
It could have been
or...
what he thought then. They changed his mind again. I remember him saying that.
Okay, so now this is the thing I think Andrew Yang's got going for him, and then we can move on to another topic if you desire. But
yeah, I'm a cactus. That's what I am.
Yeah,
I
actually think Andrew Yang, what he really needs to do to win this mayor race is I think he needs to do a robust appeal to conservatives. Actually, Republicans.
But why? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Because I think he could win in a landslide.
Why?
If he just because
how many conservatives voted for de Blasio, you think?
Well, none, because they hated him.
Did he win?
But Bloomberg won a ton of moderate Democrats.
Okay.
And won a ton. Like, what people forget is, like, in California, we've got like 30 million registered Republicans or something absurd like that. We have more registered Republicans in California than there are registered Republicans in Texas, just because out of sheer volume, there's just more of us. And if we were just to toast out of California and go to other places, we would tip the scales absurdly, right? And that's actually what's happening. I mean, there's 3 congressional seats that are leaving California and going to Texas, and I think Nevada might get one. Just because of the sheer volume of California conservatives that have left the state because we're so sick and tired of the nuttiness here, right? Well, Bloomberg did really, really well by kind of being in the center and saying, look, as a business guy, I recognize the crazy people in my party are crazy. And we can't be having this communist bent if we want business to thrive here. And because of that, once we got out of the primaries, and you're into the general election, which actually in New York, I can't remember if it's all general or if they do have a primary for the mayorship. And I can't remember.
No, there's a primary for the mayor. It's going to be a ranked choice primary.
It's a ranked choice primary.
Well, it normally wouldn't be. This would be.
No, is the primary ranked choice or is the
Yes.
primary?
The primary would be the first ranked. The primaries coming up in this March, I believe, would be the first time these new ranked choice municipal elections go into effect in New York City, I believe.
Well, yeah. And so especially in something like ranked choice voting, I could see a Republican saying, dude, I don't feel comfortable voting for the Democrats, especially now they have control of the Senate, the this, the that, the that. But so I'm voting for my guy first. But you know what? That Andrew Yang guy,
But dude, Cardin,
I had to choose one,
Cardin,
I would choose
what
him.
does-
And that would
See, I
being
think-
the top
dude,
choice of the
you-
opposition while collecting a healthy share of your own base
No.
is a winning position.
It's the losing position.
No, because
It's not- I have
he's
no-
already number 1 in the betting odds on this side.
Exactly, and he's not trying to win over. Okay, dude, look, that
I don't know.
I understand.
With ranked choice voting, I think
Dude,
the whole reason we argue
Cardin.
ranked choice voting is good is because it would
Cardin,
drive people towards
I-
a more consensus
in a
position.
primary, Republicans aren't voting for the Democratic
I
primary.
know. I'm not saying in the primary. I'm
What I'm
saying
saying
once
is this,
the
dude.
general,
I can understand
hits,
from the perspective of someone who identifies as a conservative why you would think that. But from people who aren't
well, I'm
conservatives,
conservative in some things. I'm
from people
liberal
who,
in
for
others.
people who aren't conservatives,
Frickin' libertarian in others.
For people who don't care about the Republican Democrats and who wins, that doesn't make any sense, dude. Like I agree. He definitely is going to have to position himself as a bit more of a moderate candidate because some of his pivotal beliefs UBI isn't necessarily moderate. But I've always thought UBI is closer to moderate than not. I mean, UBI, we can get into this discussion a whole other day. I like UBI. I think it'll help. I think a large part of UBI will end up being the government subsidizing small business for the most part, which I think is good. But I think it very easily could tip into the government subsidizing big business, which I think is bad. However, Yang's boy's been he's definitely a lot more on board with capitalism than Bill de Blasio is. I know that, at least in his speech, right? It's just Yang trends towards more moderate. I think, and here's the other thing I think, dude. I think a lot of non-Trump MAGA, just regular Republican types, a lot of them, especially the ones that live in New York City, would probably vote towards moderate Democrat. I think it's why New York City had a lot of moderate Democrat, moderate Republicans.
Hey, so you know how
Because really, as long as you make the right people happy and you ensure that we're gonna make New York City great, I'm sure dude, it is weird to think Giuliani won as a Republican, Bloomberg won as a Republican, then ran for president as a Democrat, then de Blasio is basically a communist and he won. It is really weird. I gotta admit, I don't live in New York City, but I just think Yang playing to the strength of Yang with his beliefs and kind of what he talks about, I think that a little bit more. I hate to say it this way, but almost the corporatist you could trust, you know? He's like, I'm like the corporate dem with like a heart. I'm like a corporate dem with empathy. I'm not going to just screw everyone over, but, you know, like we're not also, this isn't revolution now rhetoric either. You know what I mean?
So, Cody, do you know what Tiger Woods called himself?
Tiger Woods?
Racially, what he called himself. He's self-identified and he made up a word. Do you know what it is?
I have no idea. No.
He called himself Cablinasian.
Very good.
Okay, because it's a mixture of all the other stuff. Sly Cactus has done the same thing with Libertarian, Republican, and Democrat. And he says, he is self-identified as, and I actually like this, Libertubracat. And I don't like the word tub, knowing there was that one president was so fat he got stuck in the tub and he had to call somebody out to get him. So I don't want a word that has tub in it in American politics. But I'm thinking Liberpublicrat.
No.
If we could, you know, condense that word a little bit, I think that might describe me. I would actually
he is a Democrat. However, he is also supports UBI. He believes in UBI, and that's because he is a capitalist. That separates him from some of the more progressive socialist leaning candidates. So one of the reasons why I always think it's weird when people try to say Yang is a progressive. Like, but he's like
he's
completely
not.
unashamed.
Because progressives hate capitalism.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's that black and white, but like he definitely is not like pro-socialism. I don't think he looks at UBI as a socialism thing. He looks
it's
at
capitalism
UBI
that
as,
starts at 1,000.
Yeah, that is
the slogan.
That is the slogan.
Boom.
But it also is a way of just kind of trying to. It's honestly, you could say it's the equitable approach to capitalism, right?
Yeah.
If you want to do capitalism, but make things a little bit more fair, a little bit more equal, a little more equitable, make sure everyone at least has a same base place to start from, to build from, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's why I always think Andrew Yang, and I think actually it's why Mayor of New York City could work for him, because I think there's a lot of people that are probably Democrats in New York City that are probably closer to that, I would guess. I think it's a pretty popular way of doing things. I mean, America is a capitalist country. There's a lot of small business owners in this country.
Well, not anymore. Not in California, not after the lockdown.
Well, not the lockdown in general. But this kind of goes back to my boy Napoleon. But there was a quote that was attributed to Napoleon, where back in the day he had referred to Britain as a nation of shopkeepers, right?
Yeah.
But I have to imagine, you could say big businesses have encouraged in New York City, they have. But New York City, I went there a couple times as a kid. I have some family that lived there briefly. You lived there. Yeah. New York City really does kind of feel, I understand there's parts of it that are corporate-y and Wall Street-y, but there is neighborhoods of New York City that probably feel like a city of shopkeepers, right? Where it is just kind of small, more locally owned businesses on the ground floor for blocks and blocks and blocks, correct? That's kind of what I remembered from being in New York City. Is that you would see shopkeepers, small privately owned little...
Like, that's all that exists there.
That's what I mean.
It's actually rare to see a Home Depot.
I think it's one of the reasons why
because
his
they're
approach
crammed.
could work there.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually weird seeing a big, large chain because big box retailers don't fit. You know what I'm saying?
No, yeah, exactly.
Like, they just don't
It's just too
fit,
expensive.
you know?
It's too expensive to have the space.
And so, like, you go into the Home Depot in New York City, and it's the weirdest Home Depot I've ever been in. There's like they try and make the elevator shaft slightly larger. You know what I'm saying? So that like you can fit this modified cart in there. But like at the end of the day, most things you need are handled by the super, which is the maintenance guy. It's called the super, but he's actually the maintenance guy of the building. And there's delivery services for frickin' everything. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's a completely different lifestyle than anything you're used to in the West. Like, you don't want to go to the store for stuff because whatever you buy at the store, you have to hike up the 10 flights of stairs. You know what I'm saying? Like, you never want to buy more than one bag's worth of groceries because you're going to have to carry those freaking groceries.
Remember all that stuff when
on
you were
the
like,
subway?
Yeah. Remember all that stuff? Like, why wouldn't you want to live in New York City? New York City's awesome. I'd move there if I could. Then you're like, yeah, it's awesome. You like can't get a second bag of groceries because you have to make a pilgrimage to the grocery store. It's like, that sounds great, dude. But can't wait.
Hey, but eating out is cheap though. Like, if you actually look at your food bill, you know, you're probably eating $20 of food a day. Well, you can survive off of $20, man. Yeah, Street meat's $5 for some great lamb with some, you know, like some rice and the white and the red sauce,
before we
you know?
finish, I want to go on one last thing with you. It's a little bit of Yang's plan for revitalizing the New York economy. I want to think what you see about this. Ready? He has a slate of ideas for revitalizing a city reeling from the pandemic, proposing, quote, the biggest implementation of a basic income in the country. I like that, right?
Yeah.
Also, addressing broadband internet access. I like that.
Yeah.
Honestly, New York City,
Yeah.
you've talked about it is so dense, you probably could just blanket the whole city in broadband. It's pretty tight
or
together.
in a T1 cable with fiber optic, you know?
Yeah, like it wouldn't be that hard. How about this, though?
Yeah.
He also is urging the establishment of a People's Bank of New York to assist struggling New Yorkers.
Ooh,
now, some operatives and lawmakers doubt the feasibility of his vision, which, by the way,
hold on. Okay, but what service would that provide over any other bank?
What
would the People's Bank of New York?
I'm assuming, and I'm not big on this stuff. It'd be a little bit closer to what you see in like credit unions, like a credit union, but for the people of New York, right? Where it's like a bank that generates profits and does all the bank things, but instead of using the profits to pay shareholders, it reinvests all those profits back into its members, which would be the people of New York. So it'd be for getting loans cheaper. For example, I belong to a credit union.
It's like a credit union. I was literally going to say the exact same thing.
Like, I belong to a credit, and this is a very surface level thing. But like, for example, they cover up the $5 of ATM fees on out-of-market ATMs because they just have a bunch of money they raise that they diverse down. That's my guess of a people's bank. Be a bank again. You do all the bank things, all the loan, all the lend, all that stuff. Except you take that money and then use it to benefit people as opposed to just you reinvest it in your business, basically, which would be the city of New York. Anyway, I love the quote after that. Some operatives and lawmakers doubt the feasibility of his vision. That's what political operatives and lawmakers exist. That's why they exist. To doubt the feasibility of people's visions.
Yeah.
Sorry, can't be done. I'm the bureaucrat who just says, nope, nope, nope. Everything has to be the way it's always been forever. It's crazy,
Wait,
man.
repeat that?
Some operatives and lawmakers doubt the feasibility of his vision. Like, no, oh, really? That's all they do. They just sit around at desks all day doubting the feasibility of vision.
But also, the other thing, though, is how could even the most cynical bureaucrat doubt after what he did presidentially and nationally? I mean, he raised more money than Beto O'Rourke, Kirsten Gillibrand, and all these other people combined went farther. Like, even a cynic.
The second part of it is they say that they mention that he's a neophyte who was a neophyte to city political battles, and he'll need to explain how he would achieve such. It sounds to me like the argument they're making is not that it's
you're not one of us.
No, not that you're not one of us.
I mean, he's a neophyte. How else are you supposed to interpret that?
No, but what I'm saying is that to me sounds like they're not saying that what he's saying is necessarily impossible because of some like legal text breakup. But they're just like, if you knew the kind of people you're going to have to work with to get this passed, they're never going to go with you on that. Like that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like you could be like, honestly, dude, sounds like a fine plan. You're going to run it by that guy and he's going to tell you no way in hell. And that's because that's what he does every day to everybody all the time. You know what I mean? I can maybe see that. But again, it's like there's people who exist in the government who just kill visions.
Yeah.
Just no.
We actually call them the dream killers over at City Hall here.
Things can only work this way.
The people that have to approve your building plans in the building department, they literally are called the dream killers in our town by other City Hall employees. You know what I'm saying? It's actually really, really kind of funny. So Hectic Energy brings up a good point that I'm interested to get your opinion on, Cody. He says, did you hear Biden's plan? Retraining programs. Oh, by the way.
Oh, that's Jazz the Jackrabbit, right?
He says learn to code.
Your profile picture? Boy, that's Jazz the Jackrabbit. I think we've probably gone over this before, but yeah.
I don't know who that is.
You know who Jazz the Jackrabbit? Oh, you forgot.
You read the super
I forgot.
chat.
You're a Apple guy. You wouldn't know who Jazz the Jackrabbit is. Anyway, it's probably not even that. Anyway, did you hear Biden's plan? Retraining programs, learn to code. We will need Yang 2024 to get out of this mess. I will say good news is whatever Biden puts on his website and whatever he says in the tweets, he's probably not going to do. Good news, right? But yeah, I mean, there's just so much BS nonsense out there. People have talked about this before, but like, I do think if Andrew Yang were to win this run for New York City mayor, 2024, I couldn't really see him running for president. I think he might get stuck in a little bit longer. I could be wrong, but I feel like the kind of thing he's really going to want to kind of roll his sleeves up and go to work for a couple years longer than. Because think about it, 2024, you got to keep in mind, he would win his election November 2021. Be like,
okay.
like to campaign for 2024, he would need to be basically saying, "To hell with you, New York. I'm running for president." Like 16 months after he's sworn in. Like it just the timelines don't really line up. It's probably going to be another 4 to 8 years after that, where he's going to have to spend a little bit of time in New York City. You know, I mean, think about it. How many years after Bloomberg was mayor of New York City did he run? Like Bloomberg was mayor for a while. Then was out of the mayorship for a couple years and then ran, right? Like,
yeah, but also he had the money to throw
He would
around
look,
that.
you know what? That would be
I don't
a
even think it was
repeat.
like a real...
That'd be a repeat the other way. He'd be doing what Pete Buttigieg did, where he gets elected mayor and just immediately is like, this isn't good enough for me, I'm running for other things.
Yeah.
It'd just be the opposite, where it's like...
By the way, where's Pete Buttigieg now?
In Joe Biden's cabinet, as the trains are.
Oh, he actually landed a cabinet position.
He's the transportation secretary.
Oh, no, I knew that because we talked about that on
He's
the
the
show.
train
I'm sorry.
kid. Did you see that tweet?
Because I remember people saying, like, what experience does he have with trains?
I think it was like some news organization put a quote out. They're like, Pete Buttigieg has always loved trains, and he enjoys board games about trains, and he even proposed to his husband at a train station. It's like, but he worked for some, like, what did he work? He worked for some CIA spy firm. What was it? I'm being facetious, but I mean, like, he was in the military. He was the mayor of some college town. Like, why would he have been? I guess the mayor of a city is the closest he had anything that was transportation duties. McKinley, right? McKinsey, blanking on that name. Sorry, but It's because the reality is, doesn't matter. He's not, I guess, because again, the way our government works, it's one of the reasons why I say we can call this thing a democratic republic if we want. It isn't one. It's a lot closer to a monarchy, so I'd rather just name somebody king and make a contract with them and have it be a constitutional monarchy. But that aside, he hasn't made the transportation secretary because he's the most qualified person for a very specific, important job that's very serious, right?
Yeah.
He has been just named the Baron of the trains. Like, it could have been anyone. You just pick somebody and say,
so
you have been chosen by the state to be the god of all trains and transportation.
By the way,
from this moment, hear ye all. I mean, like, it doesn't matter who you are.
I'll tell you right now, Cody, see, the cabinet, there's very little restrictions or even talk of the cabinet in the Constitution, because cabinet...
As far as I know, I could be the Secretary of Transportation.
Well, no. Anybody can be. It's an appointed position. And also, the president's cabinet, I don't think was mentioned in the original Constitution. It's kind of a tradition that was adopted later. And I also don't think that it has to be called the Secretary of, you know what I'm saying? I think the president can create the title, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody please fact check me that in the chat. Does it have to be called the Secretary of? I think that's actually a traditional title.
You can make up people for your cabinet.
Well, yeah. So I'm thinking, why don't we call them the Viceroy? Or like you say, the Baron of Trains. We could just start using the monarchical terms to better reflect.
Hey, how about the Archbishop? He's the Archbishop of Transportation.
The Archbishop of Transportation.
I mean, like, what? Like, literally, they just pick a person and give them a title, and you have to accept they're that title now. Doesn't mean anything. They could literally be anybody. Who was it? Isn't some Monsanto guy like in the EPA now or something ridiculous? Like, they just pick people. Like, it has nothing to do with what would be good or beneficial or helpful. They just pick people based on. It's almost like this too. It's like going back to the royal analogy, right? It's like hey, sorry, you have to marry the Prince of Denmark so our countries don't go to war. It has nothing to do with what they love each other. You're literally being married as like, it's same thing with these appointments. Like, sorry, you have to appoint this guy to that. It's just that you have to keep them happy. You got to keep the donors happy. You got to keep the money going. All right, doesn't matter that they're going to suck at their job. Not really. Who cares?
So
frustrating.
Member Marion H brings up a hilarious terminology. Would you agree with this one? How about Supreme Train Conductor?
Yeah, there we go. Exactly,
Supreme Train. That would be so... Like, Supreme is such an awesome word to start something with.
Director of Transportation Personnel.
But then, like, Train Conductor, I just think is his hat bigger with the little, coveralls that they had to wear and everything. But Ann Towner, thank you very much for the super chat coming back and with Jedi Master of Transportation.
Yeah. The Jedi, might as well, dude.
The first person to insert the word Jedi
might as well
into some kind of piece of legislation or official political title wins the internet for the day. The first person that actually makes...
Oh, I want to just read over some of the stuff that Buttigieg had said about this. Buttigieg says that he has a personal love of transportation,
Wow.
recounting 1,000-mile long train trips on Amtrak while in college, and he proposed to his now husband Chasten in an airport terminal. Like, is that really? Like, imagine that. You are now the Secretary of Transportation. You're going to be in charge.
He says, don't let anyone tell you O'Hare isn't romantic.
Spots. Yeah, but it's like...
You need to travel more if
but it's
O'Hare is
what
romantic.
do they say? I love trains. I took them in college. I even proposed to my husband in an airport. It's like, dude, what? Anyway, I don't want to go off forever on this. We're basically done. Thought there was one more thing I wanted to bring up, but not really. So anything else you want to bring up, Card?
No, not on this topic. I think it was what's it called? I think we've done it. Echo Thunderbolt does bring up another hilarious term, the archdiocese of education. You're right. We should just call it a diocese.
Why not?
You know what I'm saying? So
hold on. So this Mary's for a good point. Is there anyone who does? Is anyone who's like anti-transportation? Is there anyone who's like, you know what? Growing up, I always had a beef with transportation, trains, buses. Never liked them. Like,
yeah,
that is the hey, you know what? Emerald Miner. You know who plays Ticket to Ride? Pete Buttigieg. You know why I know that? Because Liz Smith, his propaganda minister, put out a bunch of tweets of them playing Ticket to Ride. Another reason why Pete Buttigieg apparently should be our transportation baron or the czar of transportation is because he likes to play board games about trains, and he took trains in college. He even proposed to his husband in an airport. Just one of the disheartening things. I'll go further in and try to dig into all the ins and outs of what exactly went on with the story out there that Joe Biden offered a cabinet spot to Yang, he turned it down. I'm assuming it's just not a real story. Yeah. That being said, it does make
by the way,
it makes it annoying though that Yang's not in the cabinet, and it's like Pete Buttigieg did his job, played good little stooge, and what do you know? He gets a job he's not qualified for at all.
Yeah, and by the way, I said the sooner Andrew Yang realized Democrats do not give a crap about him, you know what I'm saying? The sooner he matures out of that position, I think the better off he'll be. But anyway, we're about to wrap up here, guys. Any last burning questions or super chats? Get them out of your system.
Sorry, this is the one I wanted to show you. This was the one I remember. So this is
then
back in
I was
November.
Finish up.
Aaron Brockovich. Sorry, but I think you could kick at this. Aaron Brockovich put an op-ed in The Guardian. It's called Dear Joe Biden, Are You Kidding Me? It's because he tapped a former DuPont consultant to join his Environmental Protection Agency transition.
Literally, the company that she fought against.
It just like, it doesn't matter what the title is. Again, like we literally could just change these to kingships and baronships and
why don't we at least just call it the little monarchy that it is?
They have nothing to do with what these actual titles are or should represent. Like they'll just pick people, even if it makes no sense.
And by the way, guys, for all you progressives out there in the chat, like this is what fascism looks like. This is literally fascism. If you look it up in the dictionary, it's basically oligarchs running the country in cahoots with the political leaders. The leaders of the corporations running with the political, like all Joe Biden's cabinet is nothing but oligarchs, corporation owners, and bootlickers of the Democratic Party. That's like all it is. So like fascism doesn't look like a redneck with a MAGA sign and a Trump flag in like Springville, Illinois. All right. It looks like Joe Biden in his suit with his cabinet. So maybe it's a good thing that Andrew Yang didn't get invited into that party, because that's the most corrupt party you ever saw in your life.
Again, it has nothing to do with fascism. It's just that
Joe Biden has fulfilled the definition of fascism.
Nothing fascism, dude. You know what? No offense, and I say this, and I mean no offense. Anyone who literally relates everything to fascism, communism, Germany,
I didn't relate everything.
I'm just saying, dude.
It's the first time I even mentioned the word neon.
If that's the first place people go to relate things to.
Okay, I'm finishing reading Hectic Energy.
I'm just going to say.
From like 2 super chats ago.
I'm just going to say. It's not interesting to me, and it makes like people's arguments seem less serious to me. So I feel like, yeah, but you know what?
Win.
Like,
I know. I spoke evil of the dead.
I'm not saying that, dude. I'm just saying it's like it's like the it's the lowest of all low-hanging fruit in political analogies.
Yeah,
there is no lower hanging fruit in political analogies than the radical new governments that were formed at the beginning of the 20th century. That is the lowest hanging fruit when it comes to
Are you
political
done
analysis.
yet so I can finish reading these super chats?
No, I'm not. Here's the thing, dude. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to millions of people out there. Everyone does it, and it drives me crazy and annoys me. It's like, yeah, other things like that have happened too. But I guess we only could talk about that one because that's the only one that they teach us about in school. So.
All right. So Hectic Energy says, did you hear Biden's plan? Retraining programs, learn to code. We need Yang 2024 to get out of this mess. We had read the first half of his super chat, but not the second.
I addressed that already.
Sorry. I meant to say you had addressed it, but I hadn't said my thoughts. My only thought on this was two things. First off, could we not have like re-education? I think was actually a word that he had in his plan. Like, even though I'm sure he meant it in like, re-education and like terms of like giving you job skills. Democrats right now shouldn't be using words like re-education, just like Republicans right now shouldn't be using words like storm. You know what I'm saying? Like there's some words that just like, you got to have one of your interns read whatever you're going to release first, right? And then my only other thought was Yang 2024. Dude, bro, I'm putting on my speculation hat here really fast. But we need to accept the fact that 2024 is going to be Kamala versus blank. And that primary is not going to be against Joe Biden. It's going to be against Kamala, dude. So do you think Andrew Yang has the chops to succeed? Let's just say he does succeed, wins the NYC mayoral race, and all of a sudden is going to go head-to-head with Kamala?
Yeah, I have a question, though.
In 2024?
Before you bring that up, I was actually thinking about this earlier, so I didn't want to bring it up.
Yeah.
Like you said, and I'm sure a lot of people in chat agree, by 2024, we'll probably have current Vice President Kamala Harris as the president, right? But think about that. That means that one day over the next 4 years, you're going to get phone calls or texts, or you're going to open up your computer, or you're going to open up your phone, and you're going to see some update saying that the American president is resigning, stepping down, hospitalized, something like that. And it's interesting to me that a lot of people who voted for Biden kind of knew that. But it's interesting. It's one of those things. It's easy to say, yeah, he is old, by the time by 2024, Kamala might be in charge. It's one thing to say that, right? But it's another thing to be like, there's going to be a day where you check Twitter, it's like the president's dead or resigning. It's like he has dementia and he's giving up. Like, dude, it's going to be a shocking day for everyone when that day happens. I don't know. It's just interesting. A lot of people do talk like, oh, yeah, well, eventually, he's going to, because even Joe Biden has said this. He's like, look, I'm not going to be here for 2 terms and I'm probably going to have to pass even Joe Biden has spoken about this. And it's interesting. It's one thing to speak about it as a thing that happens one day, but it's another thing to think about the events and the shock of what happened in the Capitol a few days ago. I mean, imagine that. Imagine the day where it's like the president's in the hospital, or the president's been diagnosed with dementia, or whatever people think is going to happen for it to kind of be that impetus for Kamala to be in charge. Because, I agree with you. And again, a lot of Biden voters even kind of agree that maybe not literally the same, but have this understanding that by 2024, the idea that Kamala will replace Biden is not a crazy thought to people. But I don't know. I was just thinking about in the last few days, you see what's going on nationally in the chaos. And I was thinking, too, America really hasn't had big political deaths. Most of the time, our presidents die 15, 20 years out of office when it's like they're still alive. You know what I mean? So it's just interesting to think about that. That would be a very interesting time for this country. So could be in the next 4 years.
We're wrapping up the last super chats here. Mental Messiah brings up a really good point. Says the United States of aristocracy. That is a liberal Northeasterner thing. And that was the biggest thing. The biggest culture shock for me when I went to New York City, Cody, actually wasn't not being able to hold more than one bag of groceries as you're climbing up all the steps, not needing my motorcycle or my car because everything's public transportation. The largest culture shock for me was how on the Northeastern seaboard, people just expect you to know like these family names. Like there's this weird pseudo blue-blooded aristocracy that they think that they have and they're convinced the rest of the world cares about. But like I grew up in California and Los Angeles where it's like nobody cares who your parents were. We care who you are right now in this moment and the project you're working on, because all of us came out here to complete some kind of cool project. So it's all about you and what you're doing right now. Whereas, man, when you go to New York, it's crazy. It's like people expect us to know who the New York socialites are. as though they're something special.
Oh, you mean the Ghislaine Maxwells of the world?
Yeah, the Ghislaine Maxwells of this world. And then, like, I would sit at dinner and I'd get invited to these, like, really wealthy dinners and stuff like that because I'm a crazy guy that makes friends with other crazy people. So I get invited to crazy events. Never met Jeffrey Epstein. But no joke, people would, like, name drop in, like, the hardest ways. And I'd just be like, I don't know who that is. To be honest with you, I really don't care. You know what I'm saying? I would say that to them, like, straight to their faces. But there is this expectation that like,
that you're like
who's
a New
the
Yorker,
cousin
right?
of the Vanderbilts. And it's like, dude, I'm sorry. You mean that house that fell 150 years ago and Anderson Cooper lies about not getting money from? Like, come on. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, Kenneth Booker, we can end on this one. Last super chat. Kenneth asks, what was your first video game system, dog?
Yeah, I guess I'll
Tell
say
me.
it again. Well, like the first time I remember really getting a new video game system, opening the games, playing them, being old enough to actually understand this is a video game system and I'm playing the games, was the Nintendo 64. I had played like DOS games on computers as a little kid, just kind of slapping around at DOS games. I actually remember one very specifically. There's an old MS-DOS game called Battle Beasts. For whatever reason, that game was so impactful in my brain as a little one. I remember so much the sounds, the looks, the colors, everything of Battle Beasts. But yeah, and then I played SNES and NES. I remember playing, I think it was called like Star Wars Trilogy, or maybe it was like Return of the Jedi, some Star Wars game on the Super Nintendo I remember playing a lot. But then like N64 was the first time I really got a video game console and was like older and was like, oh, I have a video game console. I know all these games and I played them all the time.
Wow, that's interesting. So, for me, my first video game system, this is interesting. I was raised by a public educator mother who refused to let me basically watch television or play video games because she thought it was going to rot my brain, right?
Very weird.
So when a babysitter came over, I was stoked because I could like watch whatever amount of movies I wanted to. And when we went to my friends' houses, I was stoked. She wasn't like a Mennonite that didn't let me turn on the TV. I could watch television with her. Like I could watch MacGyver with her, and I could watch Murder, She Wrote with her. But heaven forbid I watch Beavis and Butthead and turn into a drug addict. You know what I'm saying? So,
MacGyver's a good show for kids, right?
yeah, no, MacGyver was actually thebomb.com. And looking back, I'm super stoked. I think to this day, the fact that I tinker so much
You should
and
show
still
make your
have
kids
like
watch some
these
MacGyver.
things around here. Yeah, MacGyver was
Wait,
actually thebomb.com.
I will say one subtle victory I had.
What?
I remember in chat was absolutely flaming Cardin for knowing nothing about SpongeBob.
Uh-huh.
And then the other day, this kid was in here and we were working, and this kid was singing the Krusty Krab pizza song, and I was like, finally, I made you look your... Hey, every kid should watch SpongeBob. Great show for kids.
Okay, so anyway, my first system, before I was so rudely interrupted by Cody the Lizard Person, no, just kidding.
Shapeshifter.
The Lizard Person's shapeshifter, was... My first video game system actually wasn't a traditional video game system because my mom was really just focused on me reading and playing the piano, and I wasn't going to be one of those kids that had a TV in his room because all the data suggests that it rots your brain, right? And it's true. The data shows kids that had TVs in their rooms were far less illiterate. They were less well-adjusted, whole 9 yards. So my mother's crusade as a child was just making sure that I read books instead of watching television, right? She wouldn't let me play Doom as a kid because she was afraid it was so violent. So you want to know what she did instead? She went and she bought me the paperback. I read for 7th grade when Doom, the video game, was super popular. I read the Doom book. So I can at least know the storyline.
Well, the story to Doom is not a whole lot.
Yeah, well, it was a crazy book. So anyway.
Well, then guess what happens in it? Demons come, so a guy starts fighting the demons. Then he realizes in order to really beat the demons, he's going to have to go to hell to kill Lucifer himself. So he goes to hell, kills Lucifer himself, and then comes back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
something like
that's
that.
Doom.
Actually, I don't even know
There's a meme on the internet that Doom is the most Christian game ever.
Oh, that's funny.
It's all about just killing demons and going to hell to defeat the demons.
So then, anyway, so the point is, Cody, that my dad later on kind of stepped in and he's like, come on. Like, I get that, we don't want our kid to be illiterate, but here, he can play some video games, right? So my dad actually procured I can't remember if it was his old system or he'd bought it on the Recycler, which is a very large classified that existed in the 90s. An original Atari, dog. So I played like Pitfall and the Racer games and all those old like late 70s games and everything like that my dad had played as a kid because he found his old Atari system and I was actually allowed to play on his Atari system.
Very cool.
And then they bought me, this one will throw you back. Then he convinced my mom to get me a video game system, and you'll never believe what it was. I want to get one for my son. Do you remember Sega Game Gear?
Yeah, of course.
Dude, Sega Game Gear was sick.
That's hilarious. That was the system your family bought you? The Game Gear?
It was the Game Gear.
Like the crazy, overpriced, gigantic
Took
battery
6 battery
consuming.
hogs. Like,
yeah, it's just.
By the way, I found out later my mom liked that it was battery powered and it was a battery hog because my dad had complained. He's like, we have to buy so many batteries. And she realized that naturally regulates his screen time.
That's hilarious.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he can't play for more than an hour because it drains the freaking batteries. So they got me rechargeable batteries, and so I could only play for like an hour and a half, and then I have to stop and then wait like 4 hours for the batteries to recharge.
You had Batman, Columns.
My first close, I didn't know how to pronounce chaos. I thought it was Sonic Choaz. Until I realized, I was telling my dad, I was like, can I have Sonic Choaz? He's like, what?
Pardon,
Well, that's chaos.
What about video games making people illiterate? I literally, do you know how, I forgot to mention first video game systems, Game Boy, just original old school brick Game Boy, into the Game Boy Color, into the Game Boy Advances. Like I played Game Boys forever as a kid. The first video game system pre-N64 that I really had that was mine was a Game Boy, and I played Pokemon. The amount of words I learned to read from Pokemon, weird, like psychic, I'm trying to figure out what I was like phys.
Well, and you learned how to type super fast by gaming.
Well, that was Counter-Strike.
If
I wanted to flame somebody, I only had like a second because someone came around the corner and killed me, so I had to flame them in like a second before. But no, I literally remember like there was like I didn't learn to read from Pokemon, but when I was a kid, there'd be words that I would discover in Pokemon, similar to how when you're reading books as a kid. Because when I was a kid, I used to read all the series of Unfortunate Event books. I used to read the Goosebump books. I used to read the Hardy Boys books. And it was similar to when you're reading a book.
What are you, like a grandma? You're reading the Hardy Boys?
Well,
like that's straight up like 1950s.
Unfortunate Events were literally coming out as I was reading them on release, right? But no, I mean, like, it's similar when you're playing games like Pokemon, because so much of Pokemon was written. It's a very text-based game. You would just come across words and phrases and stuff that, similar to books, you just weren't seeing elsewhere.
Okay, so this is my last question for you before we wrap it up here. What was the first arcade game you regularly played?
First one I really, Marvel vs. Capcom. That was the first one I remember.
Marvel vs. Capcom.
Marvel vs. Capcom, Metal Slug 3, and Time Crisis 2. Those were the first arcade games as a kid I remember going to arcades and looking for. Okay. And if they didn't have those, I'd settle for House of the Dead or House of the Dead 2. I'd settle for Carnival. I started settling. But always I was like Metal Slug 3. I think it was Metal Slug 3. Or Metal Slug at all. Any Metal Slug games. Marvel vs. Capcom. If they had 2, even better. They probably wouldn't, though. Just Marvel vs. Capcom. And then Time Crisis 2. And then again, if those weren't there, start settling for stuff like some other but lesser fighting games, like King of Fighters, if they had some of those. But if they had a machine that had King of Fighters or like Samurai Showdown or whatever, it's a Neo Geo machine. It probably had Metal Slug, and I'd play Metal Slug.
Okay, so I'm going to date myself here a little bit, and you're probably going to laugh at me. But I was totally down. These were some arcade games that I would play a lot. I would play a lot Ninja Turtles. Do you remember the first Ninja Turtles, the arcade game?
I do, yes.
That was pretty solid. Street Fighter 2.
Yeah.
Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat.
One of the versions, right? There's like 40 versions.
The original Street Fighter 2.
Hadouken! No, yeah. Well, because there was Street Fighter 2, then there was Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition.
The original
Edition,
Street Fighter 2.
Team Fighter 2 Turbo. How about this? There's a barcade down in L.A. I used to go to back when the world was open. L.A. was open in like little Tokyo. Where the way it's set up is they had like the big screen at the very front by the bar where they have the menus. Like big screens where they have menus and stuff. But then one of them, it just showed the screen of the Street Fighter 2 cabinet that they had like prominently featured right when you walked in. So like you could like see what was going, who was winning in the Street Fighter 2 game, no matter where you were in this whole area. And they also had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game there as well.
Yeah.
When you said both those games, I immediately thought of that place. I'm like, I was just somewhere like a year ago, but like I just had a place that had both those games still.
And then also, look at this, Cody.
Oh, Cruising USA is great too. Some
Yeah,
Golden Axe, that's
and
good.
my mom being an educator and having the Apple IIc Plus. See, what's funny is computer games she wasn't as against. It was video games that she thought was evil. But I did Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, beat every single one.
Those are good games.
Oregon Trail.
Okay.
Oregon Trail was another big one. Then there was what's it called? The old games were still in arcades when I was there. Tetris and the original Mrs. Pac-Man.
Yeah, no,
Like,
you will still find, you go to anywhere that has arcade
Yeah.
games, Galaga, Pac-Man.
Yeah.
One of my favorites, Burger Time. I love Burger Time. You'll still find Burger Time.
Don't even know what Burger Time is. Dig Dug. I'm down with Dig Dug, but never know what
Dig
Burger
Dug.
Time was.
Oh, Burger Time. NBA Jam was a good one.
Oh, somebody else just said NBA Jams.
Yeah,
Kenneth
that's why I
Booker.
just Kenneth Booker's
Oh, okay.
NBA Jam was a good one. Dude, they're honestly video arcades.
Hey, by the way, do you remember
very-
Big Head Mode on NBA Jams?
Yeah, all
the code that you could
dude,
put in?
There's NFL Blitz. I don't know if you remember. This is a little bit. This is like way past like the end of arcades. I remember when I was like 12 or 13, they used to have these games at the arcades, and it was really weird. You would stand between these bars, and it was like a cop shooting game, right? Like you're a cop and you're shooting at criminals, but it was like motion sensitive. So the way you'd move from behind the wall to in front was you'd literally move your body.
Okay.
But I do as a kid. I love video games my whole life. As a kid, I used to love arcades. I used to go to arcades and spend way too much money at arcades. And yeah, but like that was really it. Was if I could, Marvel vs. Capcom. Oh, and my guilty. I'll wrap up this guilty pleasure arcade game. I used to love playing at arcades. Another one, if I ever saw it, I'd go over to it. It's like Deer Hunter 2, like Buck Champions, like one of those deer hunting games, those hunter games where you have those like those like orange shotguns. God, I used to love those, man. They were because it was a lot of fun. It was like very like because you weren't killing real animals, people who don't like hunting, and it was like the way it would work was you'd like pick a certain animal, and they'd say, okay, if you're gonna shoot this animal, you got to shoot him like right here. And you got to wait for him, and you kind of wait and see him come out of it. It was a really kind of interesting experience. You know what? Playing that, I could see why people go out and hunt. Pretty rewarding, just kind of waiting around. Especially, I don't know. I think the idea of killing a deer and then skinning it and eating deer meat for the next 20 months, I don't know. It sounds like a pretty decent way of doing things.
So, Cody, last question. Should we start an arcade?
No.
No? Dang it.
I don't know, man. If you found the money, if you have Pete's money, wine crystal wine cave in the money tree, then we could do an arcade. But I think they're money losers in too many places right now. I don't know where they're money makers.
Okay. You're moving to Vegas.
They
Maybe we'll
have
make it happen.
They have to be barcades now, like as the guy described. They're basically just bars with arcade cabinets because the arcade games can be loss leaders because who cares? They're spending $35 and $6 worth of alcohol, right? So like, who cares if the video games aren't making me any money? That seems to be how they work.
Okay, cool, awesome. Well, we're gonna have to call it quits right now. It's been awesome, guys. It's been totally fun. We of course went over, but hey, what better crew to go over with than you guys? This is Problem Solver Politics.